it. Hello and welcome back to the Mountains and Barbells podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Dirk. I'm so excited to be back in routine and be filming some podcast episodes again. If you're an avid listener and I've seen your notes, I've seen your messages, and I appreciate all of you reaching out over the last couple of weeks. It's been a couple of weeks since the last episode that I released. I did announce last week just a little bit about what we were going through. I haven't posted an episode in about 3 weeks just because we were going through a lot with our family and going through a lot just personally. And if you follow me on social media, I did announce that we went through a miscarriage, and that is kind of where I've been. I've been dealing with that and dealing with my health, and I've been going and walking through some of these things that I just never thought that would be a part of our journey. I'm sure everybody feels that way, and it's so common. I feel like it is such a big part of me now and like part of the journey that I've gone through. And it really speaks to a lot of what I stand for in terms of my brand and where the brand is going and where I see it going, and just the experiences of life that we as women face. I know that now that I've gone through it, just how emotionally challenging it is and how much of a physical toll that it truly has on your body. And so I'm recovering from that as well physically. And there's a lot that goes into it. So I definitely want to do an in-depth episode on this topic, talking about fertility, talking about our journey, talking about our miscarriage, because I think it's so important that it's talked about. One, I feel like it's so lonely. Two, this is something that, like I said, you don't really think about going through, but then when you get pregnant, this was a fear that I continuously came across or that I worried about. And then when it actually happened, it's something that you can't be prepared for. And it's something that is so challenging emotionally, but also physically. And just like the preparation and the conversation is just not being had. And it's something that I feel like I went through very alone, that I'm still going through very alone. Like I said, I'm gonna do a whole episode on this as well, and just kind of like dive into a little bit more of the details. But I was pregnant for almost the entire first trimester, and then I had to go through the physical loss of it as well. And so it's just been a lot. And the recovery aspect is so much different that I feel like people talk about or give it credit to. So I really want to talk a little bit more about that. And just additionally, I want to be adding more about fertility and overall pregnancy into the programming I do, the conversations that I have. I am certified in pregnancy and postnatal care, postnatal fitness, and it's something that I'm super passionate about. I've had many clients who've gone through that journey, and it's something that I've held other clients' hands as they've gone through. This was my first pregnancy. And obviously, it didn't end the way that I expected, but also I think that there's so much value in this in nutrition and training and even lifestyle and mindset. And so I want to carry the conversation out. I want this to be something that we talk about openly and something that we have a conversation around. And I'll just say, like, it's very up and down. Part of why I'm not going to be doing an episode just yet is just because it's so hard to talk about still. And it's still something that throughout the day, I'm definitely still emotional about. But I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone who reached out. I appreciate everybody who has just been a part of the journey and just been so kind and caring to Sean and I as we go through this. Sharing your stories always has been helpful. It's just to hear like other women's going through this and knowing that we're not alone. That's been a very helpful part as well, just having conversations with people. But we so appreciate everyone who's reached out because it's been very difficult. It has been very challenging for sure. More so than just emotionally, like, that's kind of, like, the part that you always think about. The physical component has been a lot as well. Obviously, the emotional is way more, but just kind of things that you don't really expect. So, that's where I've been, that's what's been going on. We've definitely had our fair share of up and downs, and I finally feel able to come back in a capacity where I feel more like myself. My hormones are regulating. I feel just more like myself overall, and I found that the busier that I am, the more creative that I am, the better that I feel. So I'm coming back to just babying my business and this being where my passion is. And I have so many exciting announcements, you guys. I have been working on so many things behind the scenes. My creativeness has obviously just like come to light when I've had like less to focus on and been trying to distract myself as we've gone through the grief and just like trying to give myself some things to just feel good about and that have been in my control. So I have gotten to not only just like pour creativity into things that have been on my vision board for a really long time, but I've also just found more alignment in the things that I want to happen with this brand and how I want to help women and how I want to support women through their fitness and nutrition journey and just like their overall health. I'm going to be announcing a few exciting things in the coming weeks, and I'm so excited to share them with you. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that and address the elephant in the room at the beginning of this podcast because I know so many of you do follow me on social media. So many of you have reached out, and I wanted that to just be something that we chatted about in the beginning because it's not something that I want to just like brush under the rug and not talk about. I don't want this to become my entire brand and identity because loss is just sad and it's hard to comprehend. But I do think it's so important that women have a resource and that women have something to look towards or someone to look towards and have a community around that because I feel like that's something that I didn't have and I still don't have. And it's really hard for me to kind of like find relatability in this, to find answers in this. And I've kind of gone through this and just learned through experience versus learning through others' experiences or hearing other stories, maybe as much as I wanted to. So I definitely want this to be something that doesn't necessarily just get brushed on the rug. I talk about once and then we just forget about because I do think this is a part of my journey and I have it on my heart to just talk about in some capacity. So that's where we're at with this. And like I said, I'll do a full episode just kind of like talking about my journey, talking a little bit more about this in the coming weeks. However, if you saw the title of this episode, which I'm sure you did because this is why you clicked on it, we're going to be starting a new series. It's going to be the Summer Diary series. I'm going to be walking through how to get in the best shape of your life and what to be doing over the next couple of months for summer, how to be preparing. Because right now we're about 90 days out, maybe a little bit less than that for summertime. And I think that people get into, it's just kind of like the second wind of January. This is what I always see year after year is like January is like that first rush where everybody's coming in, they're trying to lose weight, they're trying to start off the year strong. And you might get into that quick fix mindset. The first thing you want to do is slash your calories in half, go to the gym, work out harder. And I want to stop you before you do this because I think that this is one of the worst frameworks that you can have is the mindset of working harder and eating less and thinking that you're going to get better results by just killing yourself in the gym and that by you're going to be cutting your calories in half. Because the reality that I see from this is yes, in theory, you are supposed to lose weight if you are eating less and you are burning more calories, right? Less calories in, more calories out results in losing weight. That's in theory, because what really happens and what I really see happen is you have a couple days where you're actually doing that, burn yourself out, and then you fall on and off track. And that consistency component is what's truly missing from the equation and what's holding you back from actually seeing results. So if you're constantly in this cycle of trying to lose weight, not losing weight, or only losing a couple of pounds, falling off track, and then starting over again, and you kind of can see where that's going to be a pattern year after year, I want to stop you before you try this again and just push yourself towards something more challenging and working out harder and maybe removing your favorite foods and actually give you some structure of what you should be focusing on and how you can actually have results by starting right now and what that needs to look like exactly. So that being said, I'm going to be doing a series on this where I'm going to be walking you through different parts of what you should be focusing on for the structure of your plan and how you're going to actually get in shape. We'll be talking about a lot of different things in terms of your morning routine, your routines in general. I want to talk about your nutrition and your training and how you can break these things up realistically because we're really in that time frame right now where you have the time to make sure that you're doing it correctly. We're not looking at a quick fix. We're not trying to lose 10 pounds as quickly as we possibly can and removing our favorite foods and just killing ourselves in the gym because that's probably not going to work more than maybe 30 days. And you're probably going to be losing muscle mass and you're not going to be actually losing body fat, right? We need to have a good structure plan that's going to allow you to build muscle mass. It's going to allow you to sustain the muscle mass that you have already built, to sustain the energy component so that you don't slash your calories and now you're down to a really low caloric deficit and now you can't even sustain at that area. And then also making sure that you have a fat loss strategy, that we're not actually just trying to lose weight. We're actually looking at leaning out, losing body fat, maintaining muscle mass. So you have that toned and sculpted look. So we're walking through that series and kind of like giving you examples of how all of these things matter in terms of your morning routine, in terms of your habits, in terms of your routines, and how all of this plays a bigger role for this to actually be a structured plan that's going to work for you. So let's dive into it. So the problem that I see a lot of the time at the very beginning of summer when people are trying to get in shape, they're rushing to get the best results that they can in a short period of time because they're kind of getting that urge that summer's around the corner. They know that it's getting warmer and they want to feel confident this summer. And a lot of the time, this is people who know what to do, right? Like you are working out. You have a good routine in terms of going to the gym or getting a workout in pretty consistently week over week. You know you should be eating healthy. You have an idea of what you should be eating and you understand that you need to have healthier habits, right? You know all of these things. But the problem that I see most of the time is it's not that you don't have enough information. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's that you don't know how to implement it, or you don't know if you're implementing the right thing. So you're constantly second guessing yourself. And that leads you to going down the path of trying to find more answers, searching things at 2 a.m. on ChatGPT, trying to come up with a new plan every Sunday before Monday hits, because you're either not seeing the results that you want as quickly as you want, or you're not really sure if it's actually working because results aren't necessarily happening. So you start to kind of bounce and move from plan to plan. And what I want to prevent you from doing in the next 8 weeks is exactly that. I want you to have a good strategy of how you can actually implement these things, because implementation is the biggest problem that I see. And oftentimes it comes from not knowing what to do, not having the right structure in your plan so that you're actually seeing results. And instead of doing the right things and doing them consistently, you're doing as much as you possibly can, at least Monday through Wednesday. And then you're burning yourself out, and you're just on this cycle of constantly starting over and constantly being on and off track. And think of it like a hamster wheel. Like you can see like a hamster and hamster wheel, and they can go, 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 go to the point of exhaustion where they just fall off of the wheel. And that's what I see a lot of times in the fitness and nutrition industry for a lot of women is they will try their hardest to eat as little as possible, cut out all their favorite foods, go to the gym, work out, burn themselves out. And then they get to a point where they're literally just falling over because they've tried everything. Their effort is there and they're not seeing results. And really, it comes down to a consistency and structure issue. Now we have to look at the components that build up your nutrition, that build up your training, and that build up your daily habits, because your habits are the things that get you results. Going to the gym is not the thing that gets you results. And that's kind of why I think there's been more growth in the online space in terms of training and where you get your information and your coaching. And it's because you can go to the gym and you can do your workouts, but that's not where results happen. Results happen in the hours outside of the gym, because the gym is the component that's going to help you build, get stronger, and actually be like the building blocks for getting results. But the results themselves don't happen until you step outside of the gym. What you do with your daily nutrition, what you do with your daily habits, how you spend your time, how active you are, and the habits that you're engaging in and the routines that you're engaging in. Because just going to the gym doesn't actually engage the results, doesn't actually initiate the results. It engages the start of the results and the foundation of it. But what you do after the gym is actually what gets you the results. So that's why it's so important that you have good structure and you have clarity around how you're going to stay consistent with this. And if you don't have those things and you're still looking around like, why am I stuck? Why am I not seeing results? It's really important you kind of find that answer so you can understand the root cause and then go from there to go fix it so that you can fix your daily habits. And I've talked a lot about this in many of my other episodes about how it's so important that you understand who you need to become in order to achieve a goal, because you understand the identity or the person that you're trying to become, because you need to live in those habits right now for that reality to basically manifest itself or create itself. The results that you want, the confidence, getting lean, feeling toned, and actually feeling good in your clothes comes from the person that you dream about, right? They have already achieved those goals. And that's the person that you're thinking about, not the person that you are today, the person that maybe goes to the gym and kind of bounces from plan to plan. They eat clean, but they have no idea how much protein they're having or what their breakdown of their nutrition looks like. Their weekends are kind of all over the place because it's really chaotic with either school activities, kids' activities, or even just trying to get a little bit of balance from working so heavily throughout the week. And that is where we start to see that you can't stay consistent, because you're staying in the reality of the person that you are right now. And you already know what that result looks like, right? Like you are living in the reality of the person that has your routines, has your habits, eats the way that you do, it works out the way that you do. So if you don't have the results that you want right now, just saying I need to be more consistent isn't going to get you that either, because your random efforts and your random aspirations to achieve a goal aren't going to get you there unless there's action. And that action can't be the action that you're already taking. Doing a little bit more of what you're currently doing isn't necessarily going to produce any better results. What you actually have to do is understand who the person is that you want to be and break that down into a way of understanding their training, their nutrition, their daily habits, their daily actions, and their routines, because generally they're much more advanced than what you're currently doing. And it's going to require a shift, and it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And I say this because a lot of the times when I have conversations with my clients about routines, specifically talking about the weekend, if you're struggling to see a result and you tell me that your weekends are something where they just have to be a free for all because you're so busy during the week and you're so stressed, my response to you is generally about what is important to you, because it's important that you identify that, right? You can't tell me that the most important thing to you right now is to feel good this summer if your weekends do not reciprocate and your weekends do not show the effort of the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Meaning, you go out with your friends every single weekend, you make sure that you attend your brunch, you have drinks every weekend, and you don't track your nutrition. We have 3 days in the weekend for most people, Friday to Sunday. We're talking about 30%, if not more, of your week that is now unaccounted for. And that could potentially push you outside of your deficit or outside of your nutrition goals that are going to absolutely change the trajectory of the results that you achieve. So if you don't have the goal identified and you don't have the clarity of why it's important, what you need to do, what you need to focus on, and how your actions impact that outcome, then you don't have a plan that's actually going to work. You have a dream, but you're lacking the resource and you're lacking the action items that are actually going to get you there. And you have to be living in a different identity than the one that's comfortable right now. And the one that's comfortable right now allows you to be a little bit on and off track, allows you to be a little bit more loose with your nutrition. And again, that's okay. If that's a priority for you right now and balance is a priority, then that needs to just shift your goals, because that means that maybe losing 10 pounds isn't the priority right now. If you're more focused on having a more balanced and enjoyable weekend, that tells me you're comfortable with where you're at right now physically, and you're okay with just kind of using exercise and nutrition to make sure that you're sustaining your overall health, maintaining muscle mass, and maintaining where you're at, versus actually trying to sacrifice a couple of things, change and be a little bit uncomfortable, and focus on pushing yourselves to be 1% better and a little bit better every single week. Because without that discomfort, you really are choosing to live in the same reality, and you already know the outcomes of that reality. So it's so important that you have that clarity, that understanding, and the ability to have that identity shift and what is important. And until you do that, it's really hard to achieve a goal. And I can tell you that 99% of the time, somebody that doesn't have that understanding, not only the clarity and the structure of how they're going to accomplish it, they're more than likely to continue kind of the hamster wheel where they're on track throughout the year. They see a little bit of weight loss, they plateau. Then another important season comes around, like summer, the new year, or in a vacation, and they ramp it up again. And that's why it kind of feels like you never see results, and why you're on this yo-yo of constantly trying to figure it out and that you don't see the results. And I see a lot of blame around hormones. I see a lot of blame around either postpartum or different things that have happened for you where you're at in your 20s to where you are now in life. And yes, those things can have an impact, but more so than anything, your lifestyle factors, your daily habits, your routines, and your overall ability to stay consistent with a plan that actually has direction behind it is what drives the results that you're living in right now. So we just have to shift what that is, understand that bigger goal, and be able to shift into that identity. So that's the very first step. And that's the biggest thing I want to talk about today, is how you can do that and how you can get there and what that really looks like, because everybody's is so different. And this is why I do one-on-one coaching specifically. I have other options in terms of like coaching, but this is why I just always go back to the one-on-one coaching component, because everyone is so different and there's so many different journeys and there's so many different things that you're going through that are required to have that support and accountability if you just can't do it yourself. Because getting more information is not the answer, right? You have so much information at your fingertips and you can go and find any answer you want. You can go and get any validity about the belief that you have online, because there's so many different opinions. And that's going to lead to so much noise on the direction that you should be following. And it really depends on the source that you're looking at, right? Like you can go online and search a random fact about, should I be eating this food, or is this bad for my metabolism, or is this bad for my diet? Am I going to be able to lose weight if I do this and that? And you're going to get a bunch of different answers written by a bunch of different opinions. And you have to be very careful about the information that you consume and that you apply, because some of it might not be applying to you. Some of it's outdated. Some of it's not science backed. And I'll be honest, some of it is even written, in my opinion, by men who don't necessarily understand the components of a female body and how your hormones work and what's important for you. And they're writing that for the male physique and the male hormones. And it's important that you take that into account, because it does impact your results. At the end of the day, there are scientific facts that apply to everybody. Losing body weight is going to come down to being in a caloric deficit, but that is just specifically body weight. That means that you are in a caloric deficit of eating less calories than your body needs to maintain. And scientifically, your body is going to lose weight. That does not mean it's going to lose body fat. So if you're not eating enough protein, if you're not resistance training and you're just focused on a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. But that doesn't mean that it's coming from body fat. It can come from water weight, skeletal muscle, it can come from body fat. But that is not necessarily the outcome you want. It could be a mixture of all three. What you want is body fat. Mentally, most women I talk to want to lose body fat, right? They don't want to necessarily lose muscle mass. I would think so. And they don't want to just lose overall weight. They want the scale to go down, but mentally they're telling themselves that that's body fat when they see that number go down. And that's just not always the case. But that's the scientific data, right? Eating in a caloric deficit means you'll lose body weight. Eating in a caloric surplus, you will gain weight. Same thing. Doesn't mean that you're going to be gaining body fat. Doesn't mean you're going to be gaining muscle mass. It just means that weight is going to go up. And that's going to be broken down by your macronutrients, how your nutrition is broken down, and the macro profile of your nutrition, meaning how much protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats are going to be broken down in your diet. That's going to contribute to your total number of calories. And that's going to contribute to how your body uses that energy source. The protein is going to be helpful for building muscle mass. The healthy fats are going to be helpful for hormones and energy and keeping you full. And carbohydrates are used for energy. So you have to make sure that there's a good balance of all of these things. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do tracking, but I think it's really important that everybody understands how this works and the science behind it, because then there's other information out there that you can go gather about what type of workouts you should be doing, how many workouts you should be doing, how you should avoid certain foods or what foods you should be avoiding, if you should be fasting, if you should be focusing on all of these different components of your nutrition. And there are certain things that are important, but they're so personalized. It's so important that we're looking at this if you aren't seeing results on a very personalized level. Because if you aren't seeing results, I always say there's a root cause. There's a reason behind why you're stuck, whether it's nutrition, whether it's consistency, whether it's training, or maybe it's a combination of all of them. More times than not, it comes down to implementation and implementation of the right things, because you are on a pattern or you're on a wave of consistently doing the right things, but you can't stick to it long term because you have the wrong approach. You're not implementing the right things, or it doesn't work for your lifestyle and you're doing things that aren't feasible to keep you consistent. And that's going to prevent you from seeing results. So that personalized approach gives you the ability to look at it and say, this is what's not working. And these are the reasons why I fall off track. And I'm going to track my consistency, whether that's training, nutrition, daily habits, and make sure that everything is aligned so that I have that structure. I know what to do every single day. I know if I'm hitting my benchmarks every single week, and I have a coach there to support me if I fall off track, because I already know the things that are going to prevent me from staying consistent. And I need somebody to have that accountability with me. A lot of people can do it for themselves as well. And it just comes down to understanding the clarity of what's not working and why it's not working. But that's a bigger reason of why I offer the one-on-one coaching, because I truly think that anybody that is struggling with it and has been struggling with it for this long, it's something to take into consideration, that you just going to find a different plan, you hopping from plan to plan or changing your nutrition or cutting out one thing in your nutrition isn't going to get you better results. It's just going to kind of continue down this hamster wheel until you figure out what is really causing you to be inconsistent, what is preventing you from seeing results, what you should be eating, how your nutrition needs to align with your training, what your metabolic rate is actually at, how much muscle mass you have, and understanding the entire breakdown of how you're going to achieve those results. But bigger than that, how you're going to stay consistent. So that's the biggest thing that we want you to figure out. That's the biggest thing that you need to figure out. And how you're going to do that is by understanding what's holding you back and understanding the person that you want to become, the goals that you want to achieve, and the identity that you need to shift into to actually achieve these results. And there's a few ways that you can do this. First, I want you to get a pencil and paper, and I want you to write down your biggest goal in the next 6 months that you want to accomplish, and make this hyper specific and what is called a SMART goal. This is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So you need to be able to say exactly what this goal is on a very specific level, on a measurable level, meaning that you would say, instead of I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 10 pounds by the month of June. And I want this to be done in the process of 8 weeks, which is going to come down to about 1.5 pounds a week, which means my caloric deficit needs to be in this range in order to do so, which means I'm going to cut my calories down from where I'm at currently to this range, and that I'm going to make sure that this is accomplished by June 20th. And then that gives you a very specific goal that you can create benchmarks around, and you can create daily habits around, and then you can hold yourself accountable each week to make sure that you're actually reaching those goals. Because if you're not tracking any of that data, you are just hoping that your effort is going to produce results, and random effort rarely ever produces results. It has to be structured, it has to be relevant, and it has to be clear and easy to actually execute on. And that's where I usually find that most women struggle, is because they don't know what that is. They don't know what their nutrition needs to look like. They don't know how they're going to accomplish it. And it's because of all of this noise and this information. And then they go search for more. And that just causes them to delay taking action. But it also causes them to feel like they don't know what to implement and they're just second guessing the entire plan. So I really want you to get clear on this and understand what that looks like. Then I want you to try and shift into that identity. In order for you to be 10 pounds lighter, what does that person look like in June? What does that person feel like? What does that person engage with? What does their morning look like? What does their evening look like? And what does their daily habits look like? How are they eating? How are they grocery shopping? How are they prepping for the week ahead? What does their day-to-day look like? Those are the things you need to understand because you're going to start doing those things today. And you're going to start living that reality today because that's going to be the thing that actually helps you be successful, not living like the person you are today because you're already living in that result, right? Like you already know what that outcome is because you're living in that reality. We need to basically quantum leap you. We need to get you to that person that you want to be and living in those results right now so that you can have them in 10 weeks because you're living in that reality. So that's really important that you understand that component of it and that you understand that you need to be trying to figure out those habits and tracking them consistently because if you're not tracking them, we have no idea the data versus what we think. And I say this to my clients on a weekly basis. We're looking at your benchmarks because we want to know, like, what do you actually think you did? And what did you actually do? Because those are very different things. Oftentimes you can think, I was so healthy this week. I stuck to my meal plan. I was really consistent in the gym. I drank my water. I hit my step goal every single day. And then we go back and we look and we say, oh, wait, Friday we had dinner out. Saturday we went to brunch. And then Saturday night we ended up having a surprise birthday party and we had a couple drinks. And now we're actually not in a deficit anymore because now we have increased our caloric surplus about 3 or 4 days out of the week that we weren't expecting. And so now our averages for the week are completely thrown. Then we look back at activity and we hit all of our workouts, but we actually missed 1 or 2 cardio sessions. And that actually threw our caloric surplus again because we are looking at the weekly averages. And then we look at our daily steps and we think we hit 10,000 steps, but actually one day we hit 85, the next day we hit 9,500, the next day we hit 10,000, and then on the weekend we took a little break and we weren't walking as much. We hit 5,000 steps. So now our benchmarks have moved, right? The data is actually showing us we're not actually doing what we think we're doing. We put in a ton of effort, but our daily habits and our daily benchmarks weren't hit. And therefore, we're now farther away from the goal that we wanted to reach. And we're not actually holding ourselves accountable. Now we're just looking at, well, I was so consistent. I ate really healthy. I ate really clean. And I did all my workouts. I got my steps in. But it doesn't actually match up when we look at the data. So it's so important that you actually have a system for holding yourself accountable, that you actually have a system for keeping yourself on track, and that you're tracking the data in some component, whether you're holding yourself accountable or you're hiring somebody to help you do that so that you can get better and you can learn, you can grow, and you can actually achieve these results. Because this is the one thing that I want you to understand and the final takeaway truly about shifting into that identity and achieving those results. If you want to achieve a result, it's going to require 2 things from you: consistency and sacrifice in some way, because you're going to have to sacrifice who you are right now, your comfort zone, what you're used to, your routines, the things that make you who you are in some way, right? Like you are living in a very comfortable state. It is how we're wired. It is how we think. It is how we breathe. Our brain craves consistency and comfort, and we want to be in a state of comfort. And that's kind of why we have a fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, your body's trying to get you back to safety. So you have to think of that as when you're trying to make a shift or when you are trying to change something, you have to get out of that comfort zone. And what you're doing right now is comfort. You are comfortable where you're at and you will maintain where you're at because your body is adaptive if you stay where you're at. If you want to change and you want something to happen, you have to add discomfort. And that means that it's going to require some sacrifice. I was just having a conversation with a client this weekend about how weekends are going to have to be a sacrifice if she wants to achieve a specific goal this summer, because her weekends are something that are consistently throwing off her progress. She is consistently going out and enjoying food. And we had a deep conversation about, I need to understand like where this comes from. Is it a comfort thing? Is it a mental thing? Is it a habit thing? We need to understand what the root cause is. And we came to the conclusion that it's more of a comfort thing. She works really hard during the week because she's really career driven. She's really motivated. And then she's exhausted by the weekend and she just wants to enjoy herself. And she doesn't want to be tracking. She wants to go have a couple drinks with friends. But once we get into that place, we don't have any consistency. And that's what's throwing off our weekly averages so that we're not reaching the goals that we want. So we had to have a conversation around sacrifice and understand that Once you actually get to a place where you reach your goal, our goal for you is that you maintain and sustain that. And once you get to maintenance, it is drastically more easy to sustain that progress than it is when you are in a fat loss phase or when you're trying to build muscle mass, because losing body fat and building muscle mass are things that are not necessarily the first priority for your body. You have to drive your body into that state. And that means you have to be doing things on a consistent basis in order to actually activate those results. They don't just happen. And you can see that on a day-to-day basis. This is why not everybody's fit. This is why not everybody is super toned. And this is why not everybody goes to the gym, right? Like, it is something that you can do. It's something that everybody knows about, but it's not easy to do. It takes sacrifice, it takes mental discipline, and it takes structure. And if you don't have those components in place, you're not going to get the outcome that you want. You're going to get the same thing that you currently have if you constantly find yourself going back to your comfort zone. So there is a sacrifice that has to be made when you're trying to reach a goal that you don't have yet. And once you achieve that goal, once you get to maintenance, it is exponentially easier to stay there, because maintenance is comfort. Maintenance allows much more freedom. But fat loss and building muscle mass require discipline and structure. And if you don't have that, you're not going to see the results, because it also requires time. And one thing we talk a lot about in the time component is you can be doing something for a really long period of time and feel like nothing's changing. And then all of a sudden you wake up and everything has changed, right? Because it takes time, and the day to day is what feels the longest. The first couple of weeks takes so long because nothing's really happening, right? Like, you are waiting and you're hoping and you're just ready to have those results. But you go for 4 weeks, you eat really clean, you have to be really disciplined. It's uncomfortable. You're sacrificing things. You're maybe not going out with your friends as much. And now you're frustrated because results aren't happening right away. So you give up and then you fall off track. And it's a continuous cycle because you just don't wait it out that period, or you don't push yourself past your comfort zone long enough, because you're either not focused on the right things, you're lacking the clarity and direction, or you're unable to stick with it because it's just not the right plan, or you don't understand what's not happening or why it's happening the way that it is. So those are all crucial components. Then the consistency component is that you have to be able to stick with it for a long period of time. One of the biggest things that I see is the need to switch up things really quickly because of boredom. And the boredom comes from not seeing results. At the end of the day, if you were losing 10 pounds every single week and you felt really lean and you felt really confident, you wouldn't be switching things up because it would work. But the problem is people are so impatient and they're so frustrated because they want results like that. And when they don't happen, they switch and they jump from a different plan, or they move to a different plan. They try something else. They change up their diet, and it causes you to lose progress because now you're not giving your body enough time to consistently do the same thing. And more results will come from consistently doing the same workouts, eating the same foods, and doing the same habits over and over again. You just have to get through that waiting period, get through what I call the middle of trying to reach your results, because that beginning and middle phase is where a lot of people will give up because it's so hard and there's not a lot of reward. But once you get past that, there's so much reward because now you're living in the results and you get to maintain those results versus having to start over and constantly start from the beginning. That's the 3 things that I really want you to gain from this episode today. First thing is you need to be clear about who you want to be and what that identity needs to look like and how you're going to be living in that identity now through your daily habits, through your daily actions, and through the plan that you're going to have consistently. The second is that you have to have some sort of sacrifice when it comes to achieving those results, whether it's being a little bit more uncomfortable, waking up earlier and going to the gym before you go to work, going to the gym after work and packing a bag that you have to take with you to the office, or just being disciplined in areas that maybe aren't as fun. Maybe you're eating every single meal at home. Maybe your meals aren't as delicious as they used to be and they're not as exciting. Maybe you're not getting drinks out and you have to cut back on your liquor. There is sacrifice that is required for you to get out of the results that you have right now and get into the results that you want. And then lastly, consistency. If you are lacking consistency in your plan and you are finding yourself getting off track, finding a new plan, constantly trying to find a different direction, or that you just struggle staying consistent, you will continue to be on the same hamster wheel year after year of trying to chase those results, trying to actually push them as quickly as you can. and finding yourself starting over more times than you're actually getting the results and sustaining them. And that's truly what I want for you, is to get the results, sustain them, because life is so much easier there. You hear the 80-20 rule of 80% of the time you stick to the plan, 20% of the time you have some fun. I truly believe that is only true in maintenance, because if you were having fun 20% of the time, you are slowing down the results that you're going to get. And that's why most people quit, is because results are too slow. So if you want to get to that 80-20 lifestyle and truly enjoy yourself and maintain results long term, you have to get those three things right, and you have to be able to stick to it long term. And I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I have some exciting launches coming this week. You'll have to follow me over on social media. That's where I'm going to be announcing things first. Obviously, I'll announce some of the podcasts, but if you want to see everything first, I'm going to be sharing some sneak peeks this week, and then the announcement next week. There's just going to be some changes and getting you guys more of the resources that you've been asking for. I promise I've been listening. I promise that I have been building things behind the scenes, and I'm so excited for some of the things that are coming. I have gotten a ton of questions in the last couple of weeks about the waitlist and one-on-one coaching and what that looks like. And I have opened up the waitlist. I opened it up for April. So now it's open enrollment, and anybody that has been on the waitlist is getting an email this week. If you haven't gotten it and you're waiting for a spot, check your email. You'll get one this week. And then also I'm opening it for enrollment. So anybody who wants to sign up for summer coaching, there are some spots available. I do have to cap it, so there's not going to be a ton of spots. So if you want one, you've been thinking about it, or you just want to learn more information, the first call really is just for us to chat. Like, I want you and me to feel like this is a good fit. I want this to actually be something that's helpful for you. I'm not trying to get you into something that just doesn't make sense. So if I don't think that you're a good fit, my entire goal is to make sure I'm pointing you in a different direction. I want to at least try and help you where I can. So if I don't think for any reason that coaching is going to help you or be able to get you the outcome, I'll let you know and I'll try and point you in a different direction. If I think that coaching is going to work for you, we're going to kind of chat through what it looks like for you, how the program works, and then just see if it's a good fit, and we'll go from there. So that's what coaching looks like in terms of like applying. I don't accept every application. It is a very selective program just because I can only work with so many women. So you can definitely apply. I opened up some spots. Like I said, there's a link down below for you to apply. And then if I accept your application, you'll get an email or text from me to book a call, and we can go from there. So that's kind of what coaching looks like. I'm only accepting a few more for summer, and now is the perfect time if you're trying to get in shape for summer, because we can go through several different phases. We can really clean things up and make sure that you are looking lean and toned for summer and the next 8 to 10 weeks. So if that's something you're interested in, all the information for that is down below. And I'll talk to you guys next week. In the next episode, we're going to be diving through some more topics on the Summer Shred series and how to implement this in the next couple of weeks.